Okay, today we're going to review the same thing we did yesterday, except for we got a couple of new ways that the problems will be presented to you. We're going to start off with a couple of examples that you should be able to do from yesterday. We're going to write the equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, so number one, you're given the slope and the y-intercept. You should be able to write the equation. Number two, you're also given the slope and the y-intercept. And for number three, you're given a graph. Okay, so I'm going to give you a second to see if you can use what we learned yesterday to write the equation for these three problems. Okay, so for number one, since the slope is -4, that means m is -4, so you have y equals -4x. And since the y-intercept is 3, that means you have +3. It's as simple as that. The slope is the m, the y-intercept is the b, and the equation should look like y equals mx plus b, just like we did yesterday. So number two, the slope is 1/3, so you have y equals 1/3 x, and the y-intercept is -2, so you have -2. Now, number three is a little more tricky because it doesn't give you the slope and the y-intercept, but it does show you the slope and the y-intercept. So you have to find it from the graph. So the first thing you need is to use 2 points. Now I'm going to use the 2 points here and here. Okay, and I'm going to find how far did I rise. That's 2. How far did I run? And that would be 1. Rise over run is my slope. So that means m equals 2/1. Then I find my y-intercept, which is just where the line crosses the y-axis. And right here, it crosses it at -1. So that means b equals -1. So now, it's just like problem 1 and 2. I know the m, I know the b, so I can write the equation. The equation is y equals 2x, because 2/1 is the same as 2, and then -1, because the b is -1. Okay, now we're going to do it a slightly different way. Instead of given the slope or the y-intercept or given the graph, you're going to be given 2 points that the line goes through. So I know that this point goes through the line, the point 3,3 and the point 6,4. Okay, but the keys are still finding the m, finding the b. So can we still find the m? Well, the m is the slope, which is rate of change. And we did that a couple sections ago where given 2 points, we find the rate of change. Okay, we even have a formula for it. If you remember, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, and just a reminder, the points are your x and y's. So you have an x1 and an x2, and you have a y1 and a y2. Now, it doesn't really matter which point you call the 1s and which point you call the 2s, but the 1s have to be together and the 2s have to be together, and the x always has to come in front. The y always has to be the second one. Okay? So now we can plug those numbers into our formula to find rate of change, and we get 4 minus 3 over 6 minus 3, which gives me 1 over 3. So that means my m is 1/3. So I had to find it a slightly different way, but we still did the same thing. We found the slope given the 2 points. Now that's only one piece though. We also need to find the b. Now this part is going to be a little harder because it's something that's a little different. If you remember, your equation is y equals mx plus b, right? Well, we have an m, so we can plug it in. We also have an x up there from the 2 points, so we can plug it in. And we have a y, so we can plug that in. Now, notice, I only have one m, so this has got to be what I plug in for m. But I actually have an x here and a y here. I could use these two, or I could have used this x and this y. It doesn't matter which pair I use as long as I use the x and the y from the same point. So if I use this 3, I have to use this 3, because if I use this x, I have to use this y. If I use this x, I have to use this y. And I can plug them in straight into the formula. Now let's see what that does for us. That gives me 3 equals 1/3 times 3 plus b. Well, now I have an equation that only has one variable, and we can algebraically solve that equation. So I'm going to rewrite it first. I've got 3 equals 1, because 1/3 of 3 is 1, plus b. This is just a one-step equation. So I can see if 3 equals 1 plus b, then b must equal 2. Now algebraically what we did is subtracted 1 from both sides, and that gave us b on one side, a 2 on the other. So to recap, what we did is we had to find the m first. Then we plugged in, we found the m, we plugged the m into the equation, we took one of the x's, plugged it into the equation, and the y that went with that x into the equation. That gave us an equation with only one variable, and then we can solve for that variable. And now, if you have m and b, can you write the equation? Of course you can, because all you need to write the equation is m and b. Okay, so the equation is y equals 1/3 x plus 2. Okay, so now we're going to go over the steps for writing the equation given 2 points. Okay, now this time they're going to give you the slope and 1 point. But we're going to do it very similar to when they gave us 2 points. We just already know the slope to start out with. Okay, now another way that it could show us is with the table. So here's a table, an XY table, just like we're used to seeing. Okay. Now the thing is we still do it the same way. I've still got to find M. I've still got to find B. Now notice what I'm doing right now is I'm finding rate of change. That's how you find M. That's what slope is rate of change. Okay? So I see that the Y's are going up 4 every time. The X's are going up 1 every time. So my slope is 4 over 1, which is 4. Okay? Now, if you notice, I have a point in here that where X is 0, Y is -2. Well, the next thing I'm looking for is my y-intercept. And if you remember something about the y-intercept, it's that every single y-intercept has an x of 0. So you see, they've actually already given you the y-intercept here. So I know that B is -2. Now, that's not always going to be the case. But you need to look and make sure, because if you don't notice that, then you're doing a lot of extra work. Okay, so if you see an x that's 0, then that y that goes with it is your B. So, but I'm going to act like that's not there, and I'm going to use this x and this y. So I'm using the 1 for the x and the 2 for the y. Okay, and I'm plugging it in just like I did for the last couple equations we've done. Okay, so I plugged in a 2 for y, the 4 for the m, because m is 4, and the 1 for the x. Okay, so that leaves me 2 equals 4 plus b. So now I can solve for b. Subtract 4 from both sides, and I get -2 equals b. And as you see, that's actually the same thing that the other point said. So now that I have m and b, I can write my equation. Y equals mx plus b. So y equals 4x minus 2. Okay, now here are some example problems that you need to try. You're going to So you're going to write the equation for number 1 that goes through these 2 points. For number 2, you're going to write the equation that matches the table. And for number 3, you're going to write the equation with the given slope through that point. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is find the m every time. I've got my 2 points. I use my slope formula. I get 6 over 4, which simplifies to 3 over 2. So that's the m. Then I have an x and a y. So I plug it into the equation y equals mx plus b. Plug in the x, plug in the y, plug in the m, and then I can solve for b. Okay. Now, you may have to use your calculator to know that 4 times 3 halves is 6, and that's fine. Okay, so plus b. So subtract the 6, and you get negative 10 equals b. So now you know m, you know b, so you can write the equation. Y equals 3 halves x minus 10. Okay, for the second one. Again, you still have to find m. Okay, this time you use rate of change. Okay, you just see how it changes each time. You have to write that as a fraction, change in y over change in x. So 2 over 2 for the first one. We got 2 over 2, then 1 over 1, and 1 over 1, and all of those equal 1, so m equals 1. Now I'm going to choose to use this point, x and y, to find my b. So I made y 6, I used the 1 for the m, and I used 1 for the x. Now I could have used any of these 4 points. I just chose this one because I think it's probably the easiest to plug in. And then when I solve for b, I get b equals 5. So I have my equation. Y equals 1x, which I don't have to write the 1. So y equals x plus 5. And this last one's easy because they actually gave you the m and the b. The slope is the m, so m is 2 over 3. And the point they gave you is the y-intercept. Because of the x being 0, that means whatever that other number is, it's the b. So b is 8. So that means the equation is just y equals 2/3 x plus 8. Okay, and the last thing we have to do is a word problem. Alright, so let's say you work on computers. And like most people that do service calls and things like that, you have like a flat fee, like a amount of money that they have to pay to get you to come out no matter how much work you do. Just one amount of money. And then you also have an hourly fee. Okay, so if you stay there for 2 hours, then they have to pay you so many dollars per hour. Okay? And now, let's say after 2 hours that the bill for that person was $110. Okay, so you came out, you worked for 2 hours, and the bill was $110. And then there's another person. You came out, you worked for 3 hours, and the bill was $150. You need to write an equation explaining your price. Okay? Now, that may not seem like it has anything to do with what we've been doing. But if you notice, we have 2 points here. After 2 hours, the price was $110. And after 3 hours, the price was $150. Those are our 2 points. That means I have the point 2, comma 110, and the point 3, comma 150. So I can solve it just like I have the whole time. I have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And that gives me 40 over 1, so m is 40. Then I have an x and a y. I'll use these two just because they happen to be smaller. So I'm going to plug in the x and the y and the m. The y was 110, the m was 40, the x is 2, and I don't know what the b is. That's what I'm trying to find out. So 40 times 2 is 80. So really this is 110 equals 80 plus b. So I need to subtract the 80 to get rid of it. And I get b equals 30. So now that I have m and I have b, I can write my equation. Y equals 40x plus 30. Now, and if you think about that, what that means is that your rate of change is 40. Now that's your hourly rate. Every hour they have to pay you another $40. And the y-intercept is 30. That means to start with, they have to give you $30. So they have to pay $30 just for you to come out. And then they have to pay you $40 for every hour you work.